Good morning and welcome to Autism Live in our very new format. Today we are celebrating the beginning of our 9th season being with you doing Autism Live, and we have got a powerhouse show for you. Are you ready? Hold on to your seats, because I have been saying for 8 years that it was a possibility that someday, somehow, we would have my most favorite on my list of guests that we would have. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we are having Oprah Winfrey on today's show. Can you believe it? Probably not. April Fools. I know. I want it to be true. But no, we still don't have Oprah today. It is April Fool's Day. Everything else was true. We are starting a new format. We are starting our 9th season, and we are excited to be here with you. And we do have a really wonderful guest who's going to be here, but it isn't Oprah Winfrey. That is the April Fool. But couldn't resist. I couldn't resist, right? And I needed to speak it out into the universe so that maybe someday we can get Oprah to be on the show. Of course, on that day, I will need medication because I won't be able to stand it. Because if you watch the show, you know I love me some Oprah. But in any case, very excited to be here in this new format. We're coming to you Monday through Friday now, 1 hour from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. So thrilled for this to be our first show. Now, we are going to be with you for the next hour, and we want this hour to be interactive. We would love it if you would participate with us. So there are lots of different ways to watch the show, and there's lots of different ways to participate. Traven is going to show you some of the different ways that you can be writing into the show and some of the ways that you can be watching us, because we podcast all over the place and are live in a lot of different places. While he's doing that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, you will see that it's a brand new website, and there's many things in different places. We tried to make it more user-friendly for you to find the information that you need. So there are lots of different search features. You can search by topic. You can search by text in terms of a topic. You can search by date. Many by playlist that has different subcategories, by the guests that we have, the ones who are frequent. You'll see that, for instance, there's a whole playlist that's just Ask Dr. Grandin. There's a whole playlist that's just the videos that we've done with Dr. Grandin and other people as well. So we hope that you will use that. On the new webpage, when we are live, there is a red dot at the top and it says live, and if you click on that, it opens up so that you can full screen it. We still have the chat feature. It is at the bottom of the page. Click on chat. It opens up and you can write in all the way. By the way, this is free, and you get to be completely anonymous when you ask a question directly from our website. Having said all of that, I just want to say that on tomorrow's show, it will be World Autism Awareness Day. You definitely want to tune in. Of course, I will be reading you what the UN has to say about this year's World Autism Awareness Day, and then we are hoping to be live with some wonderful adults that are on the autism spectrum who will be working as part of an Autism Works Now program for Glorious Pies. They're going to be an event and be selling pies, so we're hoping to drop in on them as they're setting up, as they're starting to do their work and do some interviews as well. So all of that being said, we've got a great guest for you today. I'm so excited to kick off this new format with this gentleman. Archie Brechin is going to be with us. He is a wonderful self-advocate, and he is working with the Global Autism Project, who we've had them before on the show, and we can't wait to talk with Archie about what's going on in his life and how he is helping the Global Autism Project. So all of that is coming up. First, stay tuned for these messages.
Love is a battlefield. Autism and PTSD for parents. It's a thing. I'm here to tell you it's survivable. What you need to do is remember, this is not for the faint of heart. There's actually a study that was done on mothers of children with autism, and it said, oh, this is very similar to PTSD among soldiers. And we're like, we needed a study for that. We already knew this. However, you got to remember that stress is very important, not only because it's just stress that we're all dealing with, part of the modern day life. It can have serious effects. Not only does it affect your child, your spouse, other members of your family, it also affects your health. The stress is linked to immune system conditions, which can be creating conditions like risk for cancer, heart attack, stroke, anxiety, social isolation, which also depresses your immune system further, and even, girls, listen to this, hair loss. How do we handle this kind of chronic battlefield condition? Well, we have to do what generals do. We get the troops together, we demand support, we push for what we need. So when you go into your meeting with the schools, be sure and you have people with you, because it can be very difficult if you don't have someone with you to help you. Get letters from the doctors, get your evaluations, do what you need to do to get what you can for your child, because that ends up making your stress less. Over the years, as you deal with this kind of stress, remember, it can be your friend because it can tell you things need to change. It can also be your enemy because it can create a lot of bad conditions. The moral of the story is, don't be too strong for too long.
Parent to parent, let's talk about what a bedtime pass is. Since we know that getting a child to go to bed and stay in bed can sometimes be the most difficult part of the day, we want to make it easier for ourselves and easier for our children. Having a bedtime pass sets limits that children can understand at whatever level they're at. It's a visual representation of what's going to happen. It can be almost anything. You can have a token like this that says good for one trip out of bed, but you don't even have to expend this much energy. You can take something that you have around the house, like dominoes, and say you get each one of these is a pass to get out of bed, and you have to hand it to mommy and daddy before you get out of bed. And they see, ooh, I've only got 2. Or it could be a playing card. You can give them 4 aces. You want to set the limit at a place where you think that your child can be successful. So maybe one night you see how many times your child actually gets out of bed. And if it's 6 times, give them 6 cards and say, this is how many times you can get out of bed. And after that, you can't get out of bed anymore. Make sure there's a reward for coming in under the amount that they are given. Over time, you're going to fade it. So if they're successfully doing 4, then a week later you can say, now you only get 3 bedtime passes. Children really get this. And what will happen is they'll start to save them up, because if you've followed through on the consequences, they don't want to be left with no bedtime passes, and they want to get the reward. This is a really simple way of setting limits that you can visually show to your child and that you can follow through on. And we know that following through is a big part of achieving success. Getting our child to sleep can be one of the most difficult tasks of the day. Welcome back to Autism Live. We're welcoming to our show on this very special first day of this new format, Archie Brechin. He is a self-advocate. Archie, we're so thrilled to have you here today.
It's wonderful being here. Thank you for having me.
Well, Archie, let's start with, I would love it if you would tell our audience a little bit about you and why you describe yourself as a self-advocate.
All right. Well, my name is Dr Grandin. I am an autistic adult, and I describe myself as a self-advocate because I really want to create a future in which everybody with every autistic child, person, man and woman is able to live up to their potential and also advocate for their rights, for the future, and the life they want. It's a very recent title. I started this out, getting more involved in the self-advocacy movement now around my mid-20s. And before that, I had a very mixed relationship with my diagnosis of autism. At times, I thought that, the best of like bread. I thought that it was an incredible gift. And other times I thought it was a curse. So this was sort of, becoming a self-advocate was in many ways a way that I really feel like I could give back to people, and also really to kind of reconcile feelings, that I have myself, and just, kind of, put a more positive spin on the label, and really just like, again, advocate for, a systemic shift in the way society discusses, treat discusses autism and treats people on the spectrum.
And tell me if I'm asking something that's too personal or inappropriate, but
Okay.
Do you know at what age were you diagnosed?
Oh yeah, no, that's a fine question. I was actually diagnosed around 3. Basically, the story behind that was my paternal aunt actually noticed me playing in the backyard of her house, and she noticed, that I wasn't playing like a quote unquote typical child would. Like, I was lining up trains, I was drawing circles in the sand, I was displaying a lot of some of the classic behavior that one at that time period associated with autism. So that's she prompted my family to go get me checked out by a child psychiatrist, again, and that's how we discovered that I was on the spectrum.
Okay. And so at 3, you said that you were lining up toys. Were you a 3-year-old that was speaking, or were you still pre-verbal?
I was rather verbally delayed. I did have speech, but, but again, it wasn't developing to the point that a neurotypical child would develop. So, and honestly, my memories of that time period are a little shaky, but from what I've heard, from hearsay is, that I, again, speech was something that I had problem, but I was I manifested autism in the more sort of, some of the aggressive behaviors and anxiety, some of the tics, some of the echolalia. So again, I don't think, my verbal delays were as pronounced as, my other, skills deficits or abnormalities. So again, and obviously, right now, my speech is fine, and it has been for a while. And so, I think that was never something that everybody was overly concerned about. But yes, I was, a bit more introverted or shyer or reluctant to speak to people.
And then now, Archie, here you are. You're on our show, and you're incredibly articulate, and you're in this fabulous suit, and you are here today to talk with us about the Global Autism Project. And I'm super excited about talking, but I know that our viewers are going to be like, wait a second, how did he get from being this 3-year-old that got a diagnosis to being this incredible person that's here? Because we all want to help our kids to be like you, is essentially it. So is there anything that you would say, what do you attribute your success to?
Well, basically, I attribute my success to the love and support of my family. The dedication they've shown throughout my life, even up to now, has been absolutely remarkable. I mean, they've been, absolutely my total superheroes. So they really, when I was younger and less able to advocate for my own, they really stepped in. When the school board, was going to deny me, accommodation because, my condition wasn't severe enough, they really, my mom put her foot down and said, no, he needs these accommodations, in order to really succeed in level playing to attend this institution. Also, I would dedicate it to the team that I had, a very professional speech therapist, occupational therapist, ABA therapist, people who really saw my potential and believed in me. Even during some times when I unfortunately did not fully believe in myself. And so really, I think if I was to give any advice, to parents, who are hoping to, basically, to raise, wonderful children and to, help them open up the world of possibilities to them, I would also say, just listen to your child, get to know your child very well, which I'm sure, most of you already do. But also, just again, don't be so discouraged by labels. I mean, labels are only one facet of the person. And really, what I think what a lot of self-advocates have shown is that, really, with the right support system and the encouragement from home and the right environment around diagnosis of autism, children, can achieve potential beyond anybody themselves wild dreams. And so I would just really say is really for the parents, just do, research, but also, talk to self-advocates, talk to, wide panoramic view of perspective on the condition. Because, sometimes I think, we're moving sort of into a direction nowadays where it's more going to be a little bit more self-advocate centered again, the base still, the medical professionals of the community and, autism parents, which are wonderful. But I mean, I think, I really want parents to know is that, basically just never give up on your child, always be their advocate, and and really, just, the sky is the limit from possibility, regardless of where your child is now. And, just to keep that mindset. And, the other things that I would really want to, encourage even, the children on the spectrum is, it's something, when I was, younger, I was really into music, and there was this rapper named T.I. who was very popular at the time. And he said something very profound. It was like, don't be like me, be better. And that's really what I actually want for anybody on the spectrum. Again, don't make some of the same mistakes that I made. Again, embrace yourself, love yourself, and really, again, access to the support you need, and don't be ashamed of who.
Archie, you're so inspirational. I mean, that's amazing. Everything that you just said is going to help a lot of people. Really remarkable. But again, we're wanting to talk to you about the Global Autism Project and what you're doing with them. I think we should take a short break and then come back and really dig in on what the Global Autism Project is and why we should all support this amazing organization. So everybody stick with us. We're going to take a short break and be back with Archie after these messages.
Dr. Grandin, what is it like for you personally to have become the most celebrated person in the field of autism?
Well, I feel it's a responsibility. I get a lot of emails and letters from young kids. In fact, at the last conference I was at, I got a whole envelope of letters from kids in an English class. What makes me pleased is I think I'm inspiring a lot of kids to succeed, because I want to see kids succeed. Now, one problem I'm seeing with some of the fully verbal kids is they're not getting stretched enough. I see kids coming up to me at conferences where nobody's taught them how to shake hands. See, when I was a young child, I had to be party host at my mother's parties. I had to shake hands, say please and thank you, have table manners, learn how to shop. And I'm seeing too many situations where they aren't learning those basic skills.
Yeah, so you really think they need the basic skills that every child should learn? Yes.
Now, in the 50s, every child was taught social skills in a much more structured way. And today, that's not the case. Now, the so-called normal kids, they pick it up, but the autistic kids have got to be taught. And that's not being done enough.
What kind of preconceptions, though, do you think most people have about relating to those with ASD?
Autism is a really big spectrum. You're going all the way from Silicon Valley down to somebody with a lot of intellectual challenges. Now, the kinds of services and things a person needs is very different, those two ends of the spectrum. And I go to different places. I go to Silicon Valley, and I see a lot of people that I know are on the spectrum. And then I go see another kid that's smart at math, but nothing's being done to develop his skills, and he's getting addicted to video games. And they are the same kind of kid. The thing that I'm seeing, especially on the mild end of the spectrum, is too many kids sort of becoming the label. I'm very concerned about them getting a handicap mentality. Then I go over to the meatpacking plant, and there's a whole maintenance shop of old hippies that I know are on the spectrum, and they run that maintenance shop. And they've been there for years and years and years.
Why do you think the numbers, 1 in 68 now, have risen so dramatically?
I think on the mild end of the spectrum, it's increased detection. Because I can think of kids I went to elementary school with, kids I went to college with, that today would be diagnosed on the spectrum. I think that's a big part of it on the mild end of the spectrum. Now, I think there also is some severe autism that may have actually increased because there's more environmental contaminants, and there's more medications being given during early pregnancy.
Dr. Grandin, you beg parents not to let their children with autism be defined by the DSM or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Why?
Well, I think the DSM made a big mistake removing Asperger's syndrome, because under the DMS-4, autism you had to have speech delay, Asperger was no speech delay. Now, you could argue scientific reasons for taking out the speech delay stuff, but from a service provider standpoint, you know, the kind of services that somebody who's nonverbal has is different than a mild kid with Asperger's. And I'm seeing too many fully verbal kids, less severe than me, getting put into a class with nonverbal kids. I'm seeing too many smart kids not learning job skills. That's another thing that I really push. Because when I was 13, my mother had got me in a sewing job. When I was 15, I was cleaning horse stalls. It's really important that students intern in a job before they graduate from high school. They got to learn that discipline of getting to work.
If you could speak to every business owner in America, what would you say to convince them to hire somebody on the autism spectrum?
Well, there are certain things they can do extremely well. In fact, the SAP Corporation is hiring people with autism. There's another project, Project Search, where there's work being done with collaborating with hospitals to train them to set up surgical instruments for different types of surgery. And they take longer to train, but once they're trained, they're super, super good and meticulous about making sure the instruments are set up right. And that's got about a 78% employment rate.
So you think the skills that those with ASD have to offer are often overlooked by people that employ?
As I said before, I can think of kids that I went to college with that definitely were on the autism spectrum. Those individuals are all employed in good jobs. And I think a lot of this gets back to pounding those manners in the 50s and the 60s, and kids being on things like paper routes, where they learned work skills.
Why do you think the experts in the field of ASDs focus so intensely on the deficits and not on the strengths of autism?
Well, we need to be building up strengths. My ability in art was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. If you got a third grader that's good at math and he can do a high school math book, let him do the high school math book. Don't hold them back.
I want to know why you think that so little attention has been paid to the sensory processing issues. What can we learn from those?
Well, I just heard about a brand new study that's been done up at in California, Dr. Wu, and they took children aged 4 through 12 that had speech delay, and they stayed in their regular programs, ABA or whatever the speech therapy the school was doing, and then they got an hour a day of sensory therapy where they did a lot of variety of stimulation, like walk on different kinds of flooring, smell different smells, do different activities in a mirror, big variety, always doing more than one sensory thing at a time. And it was done as a controlled experiment, where half the kids just got the regular treatment and the other half got this added sensory treatment. And they got some really big, significant improvements. And they made the point of using all very inexpensive things that would be in any house.
There's so much division in the autism community. How do you think we can all come together and find a common ground?
I think that merging Asperger's together with autism has made all of this worse, because you have a segment of very, very severely handicapped kids where they're never going to be able to live independently. That's a very different kind of situation than a mild Asperger's type of kid. You see, you're putting too many apples and oranges together. Every other diagnosis, like dyslexia, learning problems, ADHD, you've got a fully verbal kid. Only in autism, right now, are you getting a range going from, smart computer geek down to somebody who has very, very severe challenges. Now, I think the American Psychiatric Association originally figured the Asperger kids would get into this social communication category. That's not what's happening. Nobody's going into that because there's no funding for it.
As the most admired person in this field, and we are literally becoming an autism nation, what do you think the most important thing is for us to be aware of?
Well, there's a point where personality variants are just normal variation. I think a brain can be made more cognitive and thinking, or a brain can be made more social. Now, at what point does that become abnormal? There's no black and white dividing line. I'm getting concerned that what we're saying is abnormal is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, a child that has severe speech delay, that's an abnormality. But when you take the kids that are just kind of socially awkward, a lot of those kids are really smart. And then you got the person that's a total social butterfly. And let's think back to the caveman days. I don't think the social yak-yaks around the campfire made the first stone spear.
Dr. Grandin, thank you for inspiring all of us as parents and children.
Well, welcome back to Autism Live on this very special inaugural episode as we go to a new format. We're here on a Monday, April Fool's Day. So thrilled to be here, but no more tricks, no more fools, because we have Archie Brechin is with us. He's a self-advocate, an amazing self-advocate, inspirational, and he's here to talk with us about the Global Autism Project, who they are, and what he has to do with them. So Archie, what is the Global Autism Project?
Okay, so the Global Autism Project is a 501c nonprofit organization that trains staff at autism centers around the world. It was started in 2003 by our fabulous boss, Molly Olapini, who was working with a family in Ghana at the time. And well, when she was working there, she just noticed there was a huge paucity of services available for the child. And this is a family that used to live in the United States, and they had moved to Ghana. And so basically, they asked her, to come with them as their son's teacher. Now, at the time, Molly was thinking, okay, maybe, in order to ameliorate the situation a little bit, we could, get, a team of, ABA therapists, speech and occupational therapists, others, just to come over to Ghana and just help train these teachers. Unfortunately, what she realized is, at the time, no such thing existed, and that she basically, that's what really inspired her to start the NGO. And just hearing that story from her is was really, it's an inspiration to all of the staff, the volunteers, and the extended family of the project. But I feel like it was really inspirational for me to hear that, because it taught me just to go out of your comfort zone and take unknown risks. And so basically that's who we are. We've definitely expanded since our early days. Now we operate in over 14 different countries around the world, and even some countries where traditionally maybe Americans have been a little reluctant to go to. And we also all of our skill core trips are full. And basically, it's just it's grown into this really dynamic, wonderful, inspirational organization.
And so what is your role then at the Global Autism Project?
So basically, my role is, as one of the organization's self-advocates. I, as all of you already know, I'm on the spectrum myself, and that's actually part of the major mission that we're trying to implement here at the project. Is we're really trying to reach out to the autistic community and employ people who are on the spectrum, because again, we're doing honor to the famous slogan, nothing about us without us. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very popular, and we've found that it's been an incredible boost to our organization. My role is actually of an outreach associate. So basically, what I do is sometimes I go to different events, and basically just on behalf of the organization, and I talk about the work that we do, and we try to get more skill core volunteers, more participants, or just people just spread the word about the organization and the work that we do, and try to get some donations. And basically just again, I was part of the outreach team. Right now, I'm not sure if I should say this or not, but I'm no longer working in the organization in a formal capacity, but basically the way that we operate is once you're in an organization, you're part of the family forever, and you could always speak on behalf of it. So I decided even though I want to take my personal career into a different way, I've always I'm going to continue to do some work for the organization on a more remote basis, because I believe in the mission and everything that the organization does abroad. Moreover, I got involved with the organization because I was always interested in learning more about different cultures and languages, and I thought this would be a great way sort of to bridge some of my anthropological interests with really hardcore advocacy, and really just doing something positive, and trying to be a small cog in the wheel of social change for the neurodiversity movement.
Well, I think that's really remarkable. Now, one of the goals for the Global Autism Project is awareness around the globe. And we talk about autism awareness here in the United States, and sometimes we even argue about it. there are people who say, oh, we've already done awareness, we need action. But we see all the time that we still aren't there on awareness here in the United States. But then when I look at autism around the globe sometimes, Archie, I mean, autism is everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And yet the resources aren't the same. And that's depressing. But I think what's worse is that sometimes cultures and the stigma that they attach to autism can be life-threatening. So this mission of awareness around the globe, I think is one of saving lives. Am I overstating that?
No, you're not actually. Like, and this is something, that Molly has talked extensively about both in her TED Talk and, what we just heard from the field is, there are many places around the world where, there's no local word for in any of the, the native languages for autism. This is especially the case in Western Africa, but really in almost, anywhere in the globe. I mean, they use the English word for autism, and oftentimes, some of the locally accepted beliefs, depending on where you are in the country, it could be, they're demon possessed, or at the best, they might say, oh, the child is, mentally, I hate to use this, but mentally retarded. But at the worst, it could be something like demon possession, or just to really, it's a curse on the family. People don't want to be associated. But also, what we're trying to do at the Global Autism Project is, paint more of a picture of hope and resilience and capacity, rather than just, just as a whole entire disaster. Because really, I mean, other than, what I just mentioned, the situation around the world is actually, it's a little bit more nuanced, and things are changing. People are becoming more aware and accepting the condition. And just a note on the sort of, the awareness and acceptance paradigm, I think, basically that, we need both. I mean, in order for acceptance to happen, there needs to be increased awareness, because obviously, people can't accept and accommodate and validates and love, what they don't know. It's part of human nature. But also, what we're trying to do here in the United States is, go beyond, awareness into acceptance, because we believe that that's really sort of, it's going to be, change the world in terms of, people like me, or or people with all disabilities. And so basically, we found that the situation in terms of autism awareness and supports and educations is very, very nuanced. There are some places in the world where you would think, if, for example, in Europe, where you would think that they would have great autism, awareness and supports, particularly in Eastern Europe, where, they still think that autism is a communicable disease. And then yet we have places around like India, which, although the resources are very sparse and the support systems are few and far between, there's actually places with, very, professional and robust and incredible, service. And the people that we've worked with abroad have been incredible. Just hearing some of their stories and, some of the odds that they were up, it really just gives us inspiration. So I think, oftentimes, the result of the situation in terms of access to autism education has more to do with, the paucity of resources and, the country's sort of, distilted histories of colonialism and lack of infrastructure, rather than sort of lack of the capacity of the people to really understand and accommodate the condition. Because, I mean, we've seen what can happen, when you really give people, and you teach a man to fish, and give people the tools and knowledge and the training in order to to really empower local leaders and help children on the spectrum in their countries, really amazing things to happen. And one final point is, I would really like to emphasize we really emphasize that model of teaching a person to fish, not only teaching a person to fish, but also asking if they're hungry. So first off, we don't, all of the organizations, reach out to us. So for example, there would be a school in Jakarta, somewhere in Ghana, or in Nairobi, that would need our services, and they would, apply, and we would review them in partnership selection committees. We don't just go out, look, look down on places and say, oh, this place definitely needs help. So I think that was always something that I was very, inspired by, because a lot of NGOs, they don't necessarily work that way. They work under the capacity that, we know what's best, we know what you need more than you do. So we're just, for example, we're going to build you a school. We're going to, train your teachers. We're going to, make everything, bureaucratized and, just really, give you what we think your community needs. And, oftentimes, those projects end up very disastrous.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I was always, very fascinated by, and, just really pride myself in the organization that I represent.
It's a really good point, Archie. Now, you've mentioned a couple of times the Skill Corps and the Skill Corps volunteers. Tell us a little bit about what that is and what they do.
So Skill Corps is our trained volunteer program. It's not volunteerism, which basically is just like, we take people, with very, no offense to the people I'm mentioning, but, maybe not the training, necessarily the capacity. It's an idea of, just, good Samaritans going out to, just to do, work in foreign countries and to, offer aid. That's not our model. Our volunteer opportunities are only open to trained professionals in fields such as applied behavioral analysis, social work, psychology, speech and occupational therapy, and self-advocate. So these are people who are really, have a lot of experience in their home country, which is usually, the United States, maybe the UK or Australia, working with people on the spectrum here in the United States. So we have a very thorough review process. We check to see, again, like, what their references are, where the past places they've worked, what their colleagues and their superiors have said about them. So this is not just like, anybody can sign up and travel and, take a 2-week vacation to Nairobi or Chandigarh or, any one of our partner sites. So basically, the idea is, like, during those 2 weeks, we disseminate training, supports. Oftentimes, we offer, some, business classes, because a lot of these places that we work on, they're businesses. Like, they're not necessarily government-run organizations or NGOs, or, they actually, so we offer that through our Accelerated Business Academy. But also, we, in terms of, our participants get a sense of what, how autism is viewed and perceived in different countries, and also, just a little bit more cultural awareness, and just serve, and again, like, and we really want to impart on our participants is that, like, really these countries, like, despite maybe their lack of funding or even limited awareness of the spectrum, are very capable of, really of teaching, their own citizens and empowering them. I mean, like you said, like, we've seen some very, amazing, astonishing things in our partner sites, and they really, at the end of the day, they teach us as much as we teach them. And, that's what it's about, is it's like, we're doing with, not for. And so basically, like, I've done exit interviews with lots of Skill Corps volunteers, and they just told me, like, that, again, it was one of the most life-changing experiences for them. And it was so because they felt like that they had an impact, a lasting systemic impact on the people that they were working with while they were in the country. So, because our model is, like, even though the trips might only be 2 weeks at a time, we offer them support, 52 weeks a year.
Yeah. But so for 2 weeks, these volunteers go and they learn as much as they can, but they train people. And again, as you pointed out, these are people who've asked for the training. You're not going in and trying to convert people to your ideas. They've already asked for this help. And the whole idea is that when they leave in 2 weeks, that they will have trained people so that they are able to carry forth what they imparted, correct?
Exactly. Like, and just to clarify, it's not like, our partnerships last longer than 2 weeks, obviously, but it's just in those 2 weeks, they offer sort of, training and often, go over some of the goals and the priorities that the last Skill Corps trip, focused on, and make sure sort of, that, really they're getting the supports they need to one day, eventually, like, basically, like, we sort of, operate under the assumption that we don't want to nurture a systemic dependency on the part of our partner sites.
Right.
Like, we want them to become fully self-sustaining, just be able to stand on their own 2 feet and really, just reach the world in terms and just, you know, really try to, get people on the spectrum, with the supports that they need and serve as a model for every, for other, for bargaining centers in the country. Because really, one of the things that I would like to emphasize is that we're not just an NGO, we're not just an organization. We're a movement. We're a movement of global acceptance and change, and basically, and we want our partner sites to be ambassadors for the neurodiversity movement and for change in their local communities, regardless of where they are.
So let's go back over the, and I don't mean to interrupt you, Archie, but let's go back over. So the volunteers are people who are highly skilled. They could be BCBAs, autism therapists like RBTs and BCATs. You want some certification because they need to be highly skilled. It could be speech and language pathologists, OTs, psychologists, social workers, but also and those people all volunteer. They're not paid for the time that they're there working.
Right.
But you also encourage people who are on the autism spectrum to do an internship with the Global Autism Project, and in some cases go with this group of people, that it's an opportunity for everyone, but it's a great work experience for the person who's on the autism spectrum, correct?
Absolutely. I can't recommend it highly enough. And, granted, although, I may, seem, very sort of, with it and together, trust me, I have a lot of, some personal anxiety and executive functioning issues that have often, inhibited me in workplace settings. And so, but the Global Autism Project, again, most the people there are, very skilled and trained at working with people on the spectrum. Many of the people in the office are BCBAs themselves, or, again, social workers and speech therapists. So they understand, who they're employing, what they're working, and what some of the, the drawbacks are, and frankly, what the amazing gifts are. And, they operate under a very open office concept, which means you can work anywhere in the office. You're not, for example, if the front room, which, we have a small office, is, a little bit too noisy, or, there's not enough space, we more than welcome people, to move to the back to where, there was an old gym studio. And really, but also what I've loved about working at the Global Autism Project, they really challenged too. They knew what some, my strengths and weaknesses are, and they, asked me to push myself with the weaknesses. Just to give you an example, I've, sometimes have suffered from, crippling anxiety that, can often impede myself, which exacerbates, some of the executive functioning deficits that I have, and to create a downward spiral. They really worked with me to say, hey, just remember your goals. We're here to help. We're not here to judge you. And they're leading the way in terms of, really, supportive employment for individuals on the spectrum. We've had individuals on the spectrum there who've been working there for over 10 years, and they love their jobs, and really, but that's the thing is, it's the message that I consistently got from the project is, we're here to accommodate you, but we're not here to baby you or treat you, less just because, you have a label and you have certain needs. We still expect professionalism. So it's a great way, to really build those skills. Rather than just being, thrown to the wolves and,
Absolutely.
or thrown into a pool and, forced to swim, to really just, again, prep yourself, for things like time management, getting there on time, wearing appropriate clothing, observing different office etiquette. And they really, they're very good about that. And, also there's enough, creativity and space for individuals also, to show their flair and to be themselves. And so I really, I can't emphasize it enough. No matter what your talent or your, proclivity or what your hopes and dreams and aspirations are, I really do think, that, and I'm speaking to self-advocates right now, that the Global Autism Project would be a great place, if there are any, young adults out there who are looking for an employment experience, I would highly recommend.
And so then they would go to globalautismproject.org no matter what. If you want to volunteer, if you want to be an intern, or if you'd like to donate, because you guys need funds.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Basically, almost everything is on our website. You could also check us out on social media. We have Instagram and Facebook. But if you want to, become a volunteer or an intern, basically you would apply through the website. There's a little tab, on the either the right or the left hand side that says donate and volunteer, and basically it'll just lead you to the application process, and it's all online. And basically afterwards, what will happen is you will be called in for a personal interview with either maybe the director of Skill Corps or just one of the office staff to see just see if it was the right fit for you. And
Sure.
Like I said, the most of the people who actually who make our organization run are interns and volunteers. I mean,
Right.
So please know that just because I like to think of us as a very sort of low power distance office in terms of how we can review and interact with our employees. So don't think just because for example you're an intern or you're a volunteer that you're not as valued in our organization.
Absolutely.
You absolutely are, and actually in many senses you make our organization run.
There you go. Now I want to take a short break, and when we come back, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but I want you to tell us a little bit about what the Global Autism Project is doing for World Autism Awareness Day at the UN. Sound good?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so we're going to take a short break and come back to finish up the show with Archie. Stick with us.
Hi, this is Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts, frequently asked questions and answers for the autism journey. Now this one is specifically for teens and adults with autism. I get this question all the time. What's new and exciting in the medical world today for teens and adults with autism? So let's talk about them. TMS, transmagnetic stimulation therapy, is something that is really exciting. I met with the author John Robeson. Look me in the eye. He's a gentleman with Asperger's, and something I hope all of our kids to strive and grow up and be just like him. He's amazing. He talked about TMS therapy and how he became more social aware. His smile was more natural, and I definitely can better understand things around him in those social settings. Another really great treatment that we're seeing just a ton of research on in the last 3 years is cerebral folate autoimmunity. In the 90s, they started putting folate in all of our different foods and products. Well, some people they have found out, and specifically a high percentage of children with autism, don't process folate how they should. Go figure. They don't do it the way the books say it's going to happen. So cerebral folate autoimmunity is just a really exciting new therapeutic to work with your physician on and to look to see if your child is a candidate for that therapy. And another common thing that we're seeing in teens and adults, and we've talked about it before in Talk of Facts, is seizures. Very serious issue that needs to be looked at. Abnormal brain waves or brain patterns or epileptic activity in the brain definitely needs to be addressed in children with autism. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I know doctors that can go through and work and look at the child and perform a 24-hour EEG. What they're finding with some of these anticonvulsant or seizure medications is kids start to make great gains in speech, cognition, sleep, learning, by treating any type of seizure activity. So, and the other issue is pandas, not the cute fuzzy bears that we see in the zoo, but an issue that is happening with a lot of teens and adults on the spectrum, where you see a dramatic change in behaviors with these individuals, and often they have an inappropriate immune response. TACA has a great white paper, so you can go look up in the pandas definition what to test and treat for and talk to your doctor about. But know that if you see an extreme swing in behavior with a child that goes from one place to a very negative place, we're seeing a lot of teens positively responding to treatments for pandas. And the last treatment I wanted to talk about, and I'm super excited about, and this happens to not just work with younger kids on the autism spectrum, but also older children on the spectrum, teens and adults. It's called mendability. And a great study just came out of UCI in May 2013 about a multisensory approach for individuals with autism. The whole premise behind the therapy is very simple, making it a sensory-rich environment so neural connections can make new pathways or at least connect in that individual. So kids with sensory issues, auditory listening issues, speech issues, they seem to really just respond to mendability. And I was so excited to see that new research. More research is being done on it. And the beautiful part about mendability is it's something parents can do on their own, administer with their child, and be connected to their kid as partners in the autism journey. Don't forget in any therapy or medical intervention to work with your physician and to do proper testing to know what your child needs and what treatments to pursue under a physician's care. So there's so many new things. I could go on for hours about new treatments and excitement, but there's the top ones that just have me so geeked here. But that's another Talk of Fact. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time and on Real Journey, Real Questions and Answers to help your autism journey.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We are here with Archie Brechin, and we are talking about the Global Autism Project. Now, as you guys know, tomorrow is World Autism Awareness Day, and this is a special event created through an act through the UN, and they always set aside time on World Autism Awareness Day to have special events, and we have many friends that are going to be there tomorrow speaking. So Archie, tell us how the Global Autism Project is involved with the UN tomorrow.
Yeah, well, basically, we're going to be taking the UN by storm tomorrow. Basically, we have a panel comprised of self-advocates, the leaders in some of our partner sites, GAP staff members, and also, some of our employees who are we're going to be discussing World Autism Awareness and acceptance, basically by our personal experience, and talking sort of about, what our larger mission is for the globe, and sort of, discussing sort of, what the possible role of, current interventions such as, ABA and speech and occupational therapy, how, really, basically we could use some of these support interventions that have been, tested here in the United States and apply them, in culturally specific and relevant ways abroad. I mean, because basically, sort of we want to sort of, dive in sort of into sort of, issues pertaining to, how autism is perceived and treated, and, and basically described, in countries, because I believe, that's oftentimes a subject that doesn't get broached very much, either because, maybe people are too intimidated to, or, they feel like, again, oh, it must be a horror show anyway, so, why are we going to talk about it anymore? But really, basically, we're just going to be there and discussing, in ways in which, sort of bring certain aspects of the debate, that we're having here in the United States. And just to put that into context, as you may really know, there's a huge, local section of self-advocates here in the United States who, basically are very wary of, exporting, any sort of, of medical or therapeutic intervention abroad, because under the guise of, they think, because again, they are worried that it doesn't really actually promote acceptance, but it actually hinders it. And so we're going to be there sort of, saying of how, what our, take on that whole debate is, and how, basically one of the reasons why we're doing this is because, like you said before, Shannon, they're really, I think oftentimes, self-advocates, which, I am one, and, we're great, we're wonderful, and, we have a really powerful message, but also sometimes it's everybody, sort of, operates in their own bubble, and sometimes, it's hard to sort of, see sort of just the general trajectory and wide, scope of, what's happening, again, when, we're all, very focused on sort of, what the development of the self-advocacy movement and the neurodiversity movement here. And so basically, so that's really what we're, the panel is going to be discussing.
And are you going to be on the panel, Archie? Are you on the panel?
I am.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Wonderful. And I'm excited because, you know, I have a lot of friends who are self-advocates and I adore each and every one of them. Not all of them are, you know, as a mom of an individual who was diagnosed at 2.5, we looked at the science and we got early intensive ABA along with speech and OT and had a great experience, And, but some of my friends who are self-advocates are, you know, that is not what they've heard about ABA. And I'll be honest with you, Archie, even though I tell them, they're not interested in my opinion because and I understand that they want to talk to people who have been through it themselves, not witnessed it. And they want to know from people like you. And you started this interview by saying that, you know, these are the things that helped you. And so I love that you're there to tell that story to others and to let them know that you experienced yourself and look at you, you're fabulous and remarkable and not in any way harmed. And so I'm thrilled that you're there to tell them about your experience and to show them a living example of a person who is excellent and demonstrating excellence. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, and honestly, you know, with the whole sort of issue about ABA, you know, one of the things, you know, the most poignant things I heard in terms of that is like, you know, regardless of, you know, what therapy somebody is, you know, I don't want to say subject to, but is undergoing or experiencing, you know, there's always going to be people out there who've had very bad experiences.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like, you know, I had a friend who was a therapist and said that, you know, there's people out there who believe, you know, that cognitive behavioral therapy is unscientific and it's wrong and it's, you know, torturous. And because, you know, again, you know, they've had some bad experiences in the past with their.
And it is important to let them tell their story. Just like I have a friend who had a very bad experience having a colonoscopy, but I know other people who've had, you know, a perfectly fine experience having a colonoscopy and it saved their lives. But yes, there are people who have had negative experience, and I, for one, you know, I will defend their right to tell their experience.
Yes, me too.
Absolutely. They have a right to tell whatever their experience is. But I do appreciate when they can hear from somebody who's been through it that they had a positive experience.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I think too. And like, you know, obviously because, you know, again, like, you know, a lot of these things, you know, are very great. And also, like, you know, I really do appreciate, you know, other self-advocates coming forward with their negative experiences, because how else is a science or a field going to grow or, you know, or better, or, you know, take these things into account if nobody, you know, speaks up.
Well, and I believe that globally, that people have a right to tell their story. And I would never want to tell someone, oh, don't tell your story for any reason. Everybody has a right to their story. And
exactly, even if we disagree with it.
Exactly. Or even if our experience of it was different, they have a right to their story. Absolutely. Archie, we're out of time. But I have so enjoyed this time with you, and I hope you have a great time tomorrow at the UN. We will have several friends there. If you get a chance, I know Tom Island is going to be there tomorrow. And say hi to Tom for us. And also, I know Elaine Hall is going to be there with the Miracle Project, and I think Anita Lesko is there. I think I saw that Anita is there. So those are just some of our many friends. And of course, we count the Global Autism Project and Molly and all of you who work so closely with her. We count you guys as our friends as well. So have a great time.
We feel the same way about you guys.
Well, thank you so much, Archie, for being with us and lifting us up and showing us true inspiration. You have a great day tomorrow.
You as well. Thank you so much.
You take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, you as well.
Bye-bye. So what a wonderful, inspirational hour. Archie is an incredible person. I'm so glad that he had the time to be with us as we kick off this new format. Don't forget, even though today is Monday, it's no April Fools. We're back tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to be live, and we might be live out in the field. Our plan is to be talking to a group of individuals on the spectrum who are working for Autism Works Now for Glorious Pies. And they're going to be on the job tomorrow. So we're going to be talking to them as they're setting up and whatever. I'm not sure whether I'm going to be here and they're going to be there, or I'm going to be there and we're going to be sending the feedback. I don't know. But one way or the other, we're going to be live tomorrow. And we'll also, I love to read the UN statement and the mission for the year on World Autism Awareness Day. Gives me, gives me goosebumps, right? But I want to thank you for being with us on this very special show. Join us tomorrow. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.